In this video, I want to talk about something that will change the way we think about how we work. Watch this video to learn more. Have you actually taken the time to think about what you do during the course of a normal day? Let's say you go to work, you have an 8-hour day ahead of you. You get to work, you have a little bit of chatter with your friends and colleagues around you. Then maybe you reply to a few emails, and then you've got a phone call to answer or something like that, and you reply to more emails. And then you have to format a few reports, and you have to go to a few meetings. You've had lunch, and you just do this other kind of menial stuff. And then at the end of the day, you retire home. But what have you actually done during the course of that day? Sure, you've been busy, you've done a lot of stuff, but the question is, how much value have you really produced there? Throughout the day, you were jumping from one task to the next, and you're pretty much always distracted by one thing or another, whether it was a phone call coming in or a chat message or your friend talking to you. And you never really had the chance to really fully concentrate or focus on something. Nowadays, it's just so easy to get distracted, right? We have social media, we have browsing the web, we have all sorts of other information flying around all over the place. So easy just to lose our attention, to lose our focus. And the funny thing is, most of us exist in this permanent state of distraction throughout pretty much our entire working life. The problem of continually jumping from task to task and doing these small, menial, non-cognitively demanding tasks that don't require much in the way of concentration or focus is that you are not producing anything of value. You're basically just another cog in the wheel with everybody else who is also existing in their own distracted states. So here's the thing, if you want to get ahead, if you want to break free from everybody else and stand out from the crowd, then you need deep work. If you can integrate deep work into your daily life, not only will you be able to learn things faster, because deep work is a necessary component for deliberate practice, which is the best known method of getting good at pretty much anything, but you'll also be far more successful because your productivity will go through the roof. You'll be able to produce way more value in much shorter periods of time than pretty much everybody else. And finally, you'll also be more fulfilled. You'll be happier because if you get into a state of deep work, then you're getting into a state of what's called flow. And a Hungarian psychologist called Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi created a great book called Flow, in which he revealed that when we're in flow, that's pretty much our happiest periods of time. And those people that can regularly get into a state of flow live happier lives. So in short, you'll learn faster, you'll be way more successful, and you'll actually be happier too. So what exactly is deep work? Deep work is your ability to focus all your attention on a single task at hand with zero distractions. You're basically completely engaged in something. Your attention isn't jumping from place to place like it is usually, and you're not working on something and then doing something on your phone and then going back to it, or jumping between chat messages or anything like that. When you're in a state of deep work, you are just 100% immersed in it, and that's the only thing you're thinking about. You just have this full sense of engagement. So if you're a writer, you might sit down in a closed space where there's no noise, where nobody can contact you because you're isolated from the outside world. Your phone is not near you, you don't have internet maybe on your computer so that you can't get distracted by anything from the internet, and you just deeply get into a state where you're just focusing on your writing and nothing else. Your attention is just laser focused on the task in hand. Deep work is hard. When you've been in a state of deep work, your brain knows it. It feels like your brain has just been to the gym. Deep work is so cognitively demanding that most people can't exist in this state for more than 3 or 4 hours a day because they just get so tired from it. Deep work is very different from these kind of automatic, reactionary type tasks that fill most of our days. Of course, given that we're all pretty much eternally distracted by nature, that's kind of like our default state. If you haven't been in a state of deep work regularly before, you're going to find this difficult. It's going to be very difficult for you to attach your focus onto something without getting distracted. But the good news is, cultivating your ability to get into a state of deep focus is a skill. You just need to treat your mind in the same way that you would treat your body. You treat your mind with respect and train it to get into this deep state of focus. And of course, the more often you're able to do that, the easier it's going to become, especially if you can make it into a habit. So there's actually 4 philosophies, 4 ways in which you can kind of integrate deep work into your life. Let me just run through them now. So the first one is monastic, and this is a pretty hardcore version of deep work. It's very extreme because this is where you basically live your life in a state of isolation so that not many people can contact you and you're not easily distracted. A great proponent of this method is Neil Stephenson, the science fiction writer. If you go to his website and you try and contact him, he basically says, listen, I can either write books or you can contact me, and I choose to write books. So he just pretty much isolates himself for a long period of time so he can get into this state of deep work. The slightly less hardcore version of this is the bimodal method, where you have like periods of maybe 4 weeks or months or whatever where you're working in a state of deep work, and then you have periods where you're going about your regular day-to-day life. A famous proponent of this method is Carl Jung, who used to retire to the woods in like a stone hut there where he would do his deep work, and then he would go to Zurich for a few months to resume normal life in his psychotherapy practice. Probably the most useful philosophy for most of us is the rhythmic method, and this is where we try and ingrain deep work into our daily routine. So we set aside a few hours where we really focus on one single task and we try and get into the state of deep work. But the rest of the day we might need to do some shallow work tasks like sending emails and stuff like that. A famous proponent of this method is the prolific author Anthony Trollope, who every morning used to get up at 5:30 in the morning and he would do 2.5 hours of real focused deep work writing. And then the rest of the day he would do whatever else he needed to do. The final method is rather a difficult method to implement because it's the journalistic method, which is basically if you have 20 minutes spare at all, then you try and grab that 20 minutes and get into a state of deep work. So you're getting in and out of deep work pretty much continually on a daily basis where you have time for it. Of course, the difficulty of this is that to get into deep work is actually quite difficult to do, especially if it's new to you. So this probably isn't a good method to start with. A famous proponent of this method is Walter Isaacson, who was famous for just retiring upstairs to banging out on his typewriter some text for his book before coming back down like nothing had ever happened. He had this really great ability to get in and out of this deep work state almost like that. So the first step then to implement deep work into your life is to choose your philosophy. And I think for most of us, like I said, that's going to be the rhythmic state. So we have 2 hours a day where we try and get some deep work done, and then the rest of the day we go about our other tasks. So the main problem with deep work is that it's really quite difficult to implement into your life. It's going to take a really conscious decision for you to work on it for a period of time, especially if you're basically in a chronically distracted state. If your normal state of working is to work on something and then jump onto your phone to check out a few things on Facebook and then go back to your work, you're going to find this really difficult to do, because when you start doing this, you're going to find your attention wanting to jump off onto something else. And that's where you really have to kind of like rein it in and say, no, I really need to train myself to focus my attention. And I really need to do this because this is how I'm going to make valuable stuff in the long run. Of course, to make this easier, you should try and make it a habit. So set up a trigger, set up a reward, set up the habit loop. Change your environment so that you can't get distracted, so that your phone isn't next to you, so that you don't have internet on your computer, for example. Just remove those distractions ahead of time and make this as easy as possible on yourself to do. Over time, as you regularly get into this state, it will become a lot easier and a lot more automatic for you to do, and you're going to reap all of the rewards. And of course, the other thing is that will help you ingrain this into your life is to start small and build it up over time. Don't immediately try and do 4 hours of deep work tomorrow if you're not already used to it. That's just setting yourself up for failure. It's like trying to run 100 meters in 11 seconds having been on the couch for the last 2 years. It just isn't going to happen. You're going to fail and you're going to feel bad. A better approach is to just try and do 15 minutes. Try and do 15 minutes of deep work and then try and do 30 minutes. And over time, just ramp that thing up. The final thought I want to leave you with is this. It's not simply the number of hours that you put into something that generates the result that's going to make you successful. It's not by working just 16-hour days where you're going to get ahead. No, a better formula to follow is this. High quality work produced equals time spent times intensity of focus. 4 hours of deep work is way more valuable than 12 hours of distracted, shallow work. So in summary, we're living in a completely distracted world where pretty much everyone exists in a state where we're jumping between tasks and doing all sorts of shallow, menial work. But the problem with that is that nobody's really producing much value. And if you want to stand out from the crowd, if you want to step up and prove your worth and create something valuable and get ahead, then you need to get your focus sorted. You need to cultivate this ability to focus on something, focus your attention on a task deeper and for longer periods of time than other people. You need to get into a habit of deep work. If you can do this, then you will be way more valuable. You're going to be happier, you're going to live a more meaningful life, you're going to be able to learn stuff faster, and your productivity will go through the roof, and that will bring you lots of success. Hope you liked this video. If you did, like my video, subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment. See you next time.